This is the magicwordpodcast.com.
Hello, this is Scott Wells for the magicwordpodcast.com. This week we're going across the pond over to England, where we're going to get a chat with Paul Gordon. Paul is a member of the Inner Magic Circle with Gold Star and has been a longtime performer. He's quite prolific as an author as well as a performer. He's kind of in retirement, or I would say semi-retirement, pretty much doesn't do as much performing as he once did, but he still spends most of his effort and everything, magic-wise at least, towards coming out with some new ideas all the time. And he is someone that I've been wanting to speak with for quite some time. We've run into each other from time to time at the 4F convention and other places, at Blackpool, etc. But I thought if we can try to get together some way or another, if we have to use Zoom, then so be it. And that's what we did. So I'm glad we finally got a chance to sit down, at least via Zoom, to talk about all things magic and what's going on over there and his life and how he creates. And perhaps this might be an inspiration then to you as well. So please welcome my guest this week, Mr. Paul Gordon, here on The Magic Word. Well, today we go again across the pond. We do this from time to time, and I wish I could go over there more often on a personal basis like we did in Blackpool here recently this year. But this is the easiest way of trying to do it via Zoom. So this week I got a chance to visit with someone here that I know you're going to be enjoying, someone who is a creator. He's a performer, a writer, a publisher. He's got a lot of DVDs out. He's probably one of the more prolific magicians I know of, and very adept card magician, and in every aspect of it. And we're going to get into that. I just admire his skills and the things that he has done and accomplished and contributed to our art to advance it with the different things that he has created. And we'll talk about some of those creations and how he comes about that and his muse and all those kinds of things then too. So please welcome my friend all the way over from England. Here he is, Paul Gordon. Hey there, Paul.
Hello, Scott, and thank you very much for asking me to be with you. It's much appreciated.
Well, you're welcome. I'm so glad to get a chance to chat with you. I think the last time might have been when we were at the 4F convention, in which I think you were lecturing that year at the 2008 or something. And so it's been a few years.
That's right, 2008, when Boris Wilde was
Guest of honor.
Guest of honor. And I lectured and I performed in the one of the shows, and I sang as well.
Why could I not remember that? That should have been something that would have been paramount up there. Was that one of the evening show when, let's see, when Daryl Rose had hosted the evening show and it was an all English show?
No, it was during my performance. I can't remember the schedule now, but it was during the performance. I did a card routine which involved singing a Frank Sinatra song. So I sang the song because I'm also a big band singer. So that's my other racket.
No kidding. So is that kind of what you do when you're not doing magic, like at night, that you're actually kind of out moonlighting and blue lighting?
Well, I've been doing this. I've been doing the big band singing for 35 years. It's a long time. And originally that was going to be hopefully my career when I was younger, but the magic took off in a bigger way, and so I do the singing when I can and fit in the magic and juggling lots of balls in the air.
I find that very fascinating. Whenever that you're singing, I assume that it sounds like you're talking about Frank Sinatra. So do you perform the classics mainly?
Yeah, I do the classics. I'm a big Sinatra. I saw Frank Sinatra 18 times in concert over the years.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, big fan. I'm a massive, in the fraternity of Sinatra collectors, I'm one of the big collectors. I've got a massive collection of his stuff, and the band is a 20-piece big band. It's not a small band; it's a big band, proper big meaty sound, And if you've got time, anybody, if you want to go to YouTube and type in Paul Gordon singer, you can see me doing my thing.
Wow. So these are more than just clubs because of the size of the band. You're actually going to be like in a proper theater.
Probably, yeah, proper theater work. Well, we have, when many years ago, there used to be a club in our neighborhood which could just about hold a band and just about hold 100 people plus the bar. everybody was literally shoulder to shoulder, including the musicians. So the trumpeters used to be kind of crammed in like this. It was good days though. It was a great learning curve for performing close up as well, learning how to deal with, mainly drunks really, I guess,
Right.
drunks in pubs and clubs.
And when you sing, do you sing as a tribute to someone? In other words, do you try to sing in that same style, or is it just you singing the songs?
It's just me singing the song. I don't do an impersonation or
That's
anything.
what I mean.
It's
Mhm.
just the songs and the arrangements. I mean, when you sing to original arrangements, obviously there's a comparison with Frank Sinatra or whoever it may be, because of the actual arrangements that everybody recognizes. But I don't do an impersonation.
Right. Now, the people obviously, well, I don't know, obviously, I guess your backup band knows you're a magician then also?
Yes, yeah. And again, when I was younger, I used to do the magic and the singing on the same nights on some occasions. So I do like 2 hours of close up around the tables and then 2 hours with the band. But because I'm a very chatty, energetic close up magician, by the time I got on stage to sing with the band, my voice was halfway gone. So I stopped doing that as I approached my sort of 40s.
Yeah. And
I'm now in my 60s.
is that now what you prefer though, is close up strolling?
I actually retired from gigging during COVID because I thought I'd done 40 years of table hopping and pubs and restaurants and clubs and this, that, and the other, which I thought was long enough for anybody. Thankfully, financially, I didn't need to carry on doing that. So I said to my wife, we've got grandchildren. I'd like to carry on writing and creating and lecturing,
Right.
and that kind of thing, but I don't do the gigs anymore.
And it's interesting you mentioned COVID because I was just having a conversation with a gentleman in Canada just yesterday, unrelated to this podcast, and talking about something else. And he was lamenting how that in Canada in particular, among other magicians and performers, particularly variety entertainers, are not coming back the way they are in the United States, specifically in the US post COVID. It seems like that we've been stretched like in a slingshot for so long, and finally it was let go, and everything was just shot. Everybody wanted to come and see entertainment, and they were willing to pay because they had money that had been kept for a while. So I've heard magicians here in the US say that they are making more post-COVID than they were pre-COVID. Well, this gentleman I was speaking to was lamenting about how it's complete exact opposite in his experience, and having difficulty in trying to get people to contact him or call him back when he's had shows he has proven for these companies beforehand, and now he can't get them to even return. I mean, they booked him before, but they won't even return his calls now, it seems, just because it's a post-COVID thing. And is that something? But in England, I mean, I found that unusual in Canada, since it's just across the border, so close to the US. But is it similar as far as post and pre-COVID, or what is it? Has it rebounded very well in the UK? Is my question, I guess. Entertainment in
Yeah.
general.
Well, I don't think I think there's a problem because I think the big money has gone. I mean, proper big money. But of course, there's always people who say I'm so busy. I've got gigs coming out my ears and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a lot of people kind of will say that because they don't want to sound like they're not doing so well.
True.
And then I know, because I used to run an agency, that some people are doing gigs for ridiculously low money. I don't know, just to pay the bills or to keep busy. But somebody who I know very, very well said that they did a gig fairly recently for the equivalent of I don't know, $90,
Unbelievable.
which is just can't even pay the gas money, whatever you call
To
in
get
America.
there, right?
Money.
Wow.
And of course, you've also got in this country, pay 20% goes to the Inland Revenue tax man.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the halcyon days to me seem, and I spoke to lots of professional colleagues, the halcyon days of gigging over here was probably 80s, 90s, up until the 2008 recession. I think things went downhill a bit after 2008. But certainly after COVID, I mean, the whole world seems different, doesn't it? Everything seems different. It's
Well, very true. And that was my other question, having to do with a world shift in events. And that is when we had 9/11 with the Twin Towers situation back in 2001. Did
Yeah.
that, I mean, it affected entertainment directly and immediately. And companies were not paying for any kind of entertainment. They were cutting back. Was it similar in the UK, even though that you're a completely different country across a wide Atlantic?
Yeah. Well, it changed a big deal in 2001 because I think mainly because I used to travel a lot worldwide doing shows, and so the travel industry had struggled, hadn't it, after
That's
2000,
true.
because people weren't flying because they were fearful of flying
Right.
and travel and so on, and the complete mayhem of getting on a plane at the airports hasn't improved, has it? Because we're still taking our clothes off
That's true.
to get on a plane. And it puts me off traveling even on holiday because I don't want to be queuing up, take my belt off, my shoes off. Queues go on forever, and the joy has been taken out of it, hasn't it, of travel? And yeah, I noticed the downturn in 2001. The world has changed unbelievably, but magic-wise, there seems to be like an overdose of not very good magic or tricks being crammed out on the market, constantly since those days. I don't know whether it's just because accessibility of YouTube and Facebook and all these platforms that everybody's creating something and everybody seems to be getting involved in it. I don't know.
Yeah, do you think perhaps then, Paul, let's discuss that a little bit about it could be a lack of knowledge. In other words, some of these people who are YouTubers and are TikTok and creating, quote, creating things don't have a knowledge in the basics or history of what has gone before or what has created. They're going to say, hey, look at this. Well, it's just another double lift, or it's a top palm or whatever. It's different, but they think they are creating something new. And so do you think that might be in part why that we're seeing the proliferation of?
Yeah, I mean, when I first started in magic, this is the 1960s when I started, but as a teenager in the 70s, part of the enjoyment I thought of magic was the searching and the researching and the discovery of magic, the discovery of,
Sure.
for my case, probably the same as you would be bought a magic set as a boy for Christmas, and then you'd make your way to the local library and you'd go through the same old 10 magic books on the library, which was probably Henry Hay and a couple of Hoffman books and so on, Royal Road. And then you'd have to find out more, and then you'd find a club, and then the people in the club would teach you the history of magic. And there was a very long journey. And I think that's why people from our generation per se are probably more knowledgeable and probably more well-versed in it than the younger people who can go to YouTube and within 5 seconds they've got a business card as a magician.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
And I'm not putting a rap on these people because it makes me sound like an old fart by saying that.
Yeah.
But I still think one should kind of
pay their dues.
I'll give you an example. I think yesterday I looked on Facebook, and there's one of these magic groups, and you get the same old questions. I've got a gig on Saturday. What trick should I do? I mean, it's dismal, isn't it? It's a dismal comment. Or can somebody tell me where to find this? Where do I find that? What's the best this? What's the best that? And I say things like, what suits me won't suit you. What suits you won't suit me. So you need to do your own research. But as soon as I start saying things like that, I come over as a sort of crotchety old guy who isn't with the times.
What questions you don't hear or read on those kinds of forums is, which tie do you think I should wear for this gig? Should it be a blue or a red tie? And what cologne should I use? And in particular, what kind of bath soap do you recommend?
That's true. It's funny. But that's actually, that would be funny to post that. I should post that next week. I'll go. I've got my very first gig this Saturday, and I really need to know what socks to wear.
Yeah, exactly.
Funny that is. That's funny.
Yeah, but when it comes down to creating, you have a very good point, Paul. There are so many different. I wouldn't say, well, there are creators got stuff coming out, but I'm trying to say the jobbers and the wholesalers, let's say, Penguin and Murphy's and Theory 11 and Illusionists and everybody else. And then you got independent people, Jay Sankey and others who are coming out with new things all the time and sending you stuff. But it seems they have just an unending supply weekly of 2 or 3 new things that seem to come up all the time, and I'm sure they vet them, which is really kind of a sad thing to think that there are a lot of things that they're not bringing into market that's trash, that somebody thinks is good enough that, hey, this, you should be marketing this.
Yeah.
But there still seems to be, as you say, a lot of stuff that is coming to market. I'm sure that's the same way, like over there with Abracadabra and gosh, I'm trying to think of some of the other companies there in Big Blind Media and everybody in the UK. You probably got a ton of stuff coming up from those guys all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I come up with a ton of stuff, but most of my magic goes into my books.
Do you try this out first? In other words, they're just not pipe dreams, because I read that from time to time saying these are commercial tricks, not pipe dreams. And then sometimes when they don't say that, it's like, I wonder if that really is just an idea he thought of and jotted it down. But I'm confident, knowing you, being the professional you are, that you have worked out all the details and everything. So once it's released, by golly, this is a worker.
I promise you, that's absolutely the truth. I set that as a goal for myself. I didn't want to release anything that was a pipe dream because probably the same as you. I don't know. Lots of people. I used to read magic books, magic books from the 70s and 80s, and I remember reading sometimes thinking, this trick that this guy has created, I'm sure works very well in theory in his bedroom, but this will never work in the real world of magic or entertainment for 101 reasons. Even little things like the guy says, spread the deck face up on the table whilst you're entertaining. And remember the 1st, 8th, 9th, 16th, and 43rd card.
Sure.
Well, so it's things like that. So I've always set a goal for myself that everything that I've ever created or put in a book or the marketed tricks, that they have to be doable,
By what level of person? I mean, like a beginner, intermediate, professional, or all?
Anybody. Doable for a beginner, but doable for a professional. It's like again, I remember these are examples of bad tricks or tricks that I know and would never work in the real world. I remember one as a boy, and the guy says, hold the 5-card packet, place it on the table, and the audience will always assume that's just 1 card. No, they won't. 2 cards, you can put a double on the table and somebody will think it's a single card, maybe. But 5 cards doesn't look like 1 card. And I remember there was a packet trick years ago, and to make the packet trick work, there were 12 cards in it, and those 12 cards were supposed to look like 4 cards.
Wow, okay. Well, think about who perhaps is the audience for those particular tricks. They could be for other YouTubers and people who are looking at a 2-dimensional plane. If you have a camera down on that card, they can't see the thickness of it necessarily. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I'm talking of I'm going back to the 70s and 80s.
Oh, well, sorry. Yep, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
So that kind of thing kind of always annoys me. I mean, again, when I write my books, I don't want people to flick through thinking I can't do that and I can't do that and I can't do that and I can't do that, which is what sometimes I've done when I thought this is totally impractical. This won't work for whatever reason,
Well, you do remind me a lot of the creative mind, really, of Paul Cummins, late great friend of both of ours, who was just a great card guy and a good thinker. And, From a Shuffle Pack was a great, notes of his. And a lot of things that you present also are things that are not necessarily packet tricks, although that I know on your website, you've got a whole list of, packet tricks. And so you got something for everybody, basically. But
I mean, my books are mostly regular deck things with regular sleights. So I don't do any second deals or bottom deals. I don't do weird passes and swivel out moves and God knows what else. mainly standard moves, from jog shuffles to one hand top palm, a few false counts, and
Well, a gambler would never use those kinds of devices, would they? You
no,
know, to call attention to what they could do. It's like, oh, wait a minute.
yeah, yes. I mean, it's what what I say to people is, I post a lot of videos on the internet
Hmm.
of tricks. In actual fact, I've filmed nearly all of the things I've published, which is over 1,000 tricks.
Wow.
I film them all and I post them on my website or on Facebook. And I say, look, there's no editing in these videos. What you see is what you get. So I don't do any of that as well. So I want people to feel that they're looking at an honest video of the trick. I mean, sometimes people can backtrack it, and that stops them buying the books, maybe. But I don't want to deceive my customers by buying a trick, and then when they read the book or they buy the trick, they go, "Oh, I'm disappointed." I don't want them to
Hmm.
do that.
So, do you run these by a brain trust, a group of people, or a particular person or somebody to see what they think about that before you actually print the books?
Well, when I was gigging, I did them at the gigs. I would
Sure.
do them at the gigs, and then sometimes it didn't work. Sometimes I thought something was really good, and it didn't work or it didn't play well. And sometimes I've done it for friends and family or in the restaurant where I go, or a cafe. I'm quite good at saying to people, what I tend to do is I sit there shuffling a pack of cards and somebody says, "What are you doing?" Well, I thought I can come and show you if you don't mind. So I clear away their coffee cups and sit down and start chatting and end up doing like a half-hour set surrounded by the customers of the cafe. I quite like doing that thing. It's a
Yeah.
nice, you know. I used to watch Harry Lorraine do that, when I was younger.
Hmm. Yes. When
You know.
when you were watching Harry, were you over in New York City or was he visiting over in London? Where'd you
Oh
get to
well,
know him?
both. I saw him. I'll tell you a little, as Harry would say, I'll tell you a vignette. Back in the late 70s, I think it was. Um, uh, I wanted to see all the greats that I liked, I'd read about. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of them disappointed me because they didn't seem to be able to entertain people with the stuff they created. And it made me almost want to give up magic. And then my father said, let's go to this magic convention. I don't remember what it was in America. And Harry Lorraine was there. And I'd already owned a couple of his books by then. And I saw him in the corner of the bar, surrounded by probably 200 people at this convention. And everybody was laughing and smiling and joking, and he was full of energy.
Hmm.
And I remember standing there thinking, that's what I want to do. I want to be able to get a group of people with a borrowed pack of cards and have them laughing and having a thoroughly good time. Um, and then we became friends because I used to subscribe to and contribute to Apocalypse, the
Apocalypse. Yep.
magazine,
Hmm.
and some of his books. So he's got some of my magic in his books. And then we became firm friends. And last time I saw him was at his 90th birthday, by the way. I came over to New York to I can't remember the name of the deli restaurant in the middle of New York. And I flew over, came to see him for a couple of hours and flew straight back home again.
I think I saw your photo
Ah,
published someplace along with him
yeah,
for that. And I may have published that because whenever I did a podcast episode with him, I think he was 92 at the time, I believe. No,
right.
well, around that time, I believe. And he was talking about that, about how many people who had come over and he appreciated people showing up from overseas like you and other things, that was, I know, very special to him.
Uh, oh, that was
But
nice. I mean, he was such a hero to me. And I remember saying to him, I said, you know, Harry, and I mean this absolutely sincerely, Scott. Not enough people thank their mentors or heroes or the people who inspire them. And I said to Harry, I said, the truth is that if it wasn't for you, Harry, I wouldn't be living in a very nice house with a very nice garden, with the lifestyle I have, etc., etc. I said, I'm not boasting, Harry, but I would not be doing what I am doing if it wasn't for you.
mhm.
Reading your books and meeting you and being inspired by you enabled me to get out of the hole of shyness and loneliness when I was a teenager and become an entertainer earning good money, and a creator and an author and all the other things that come with it. So I said to him, I literally owe my life and lifestyle to you, Harry, and which is true.
You got a very good point. I don't think that we do give those kinds of kudos to our mentors or people who have inspired us. And sometimes we don't have the opportunity to necessarily thank them. It could be someone, for an example, who's been inspired by Juan Tamariz' books, but who have never met him, for an example.
Yeah.
So it's difficult to try to tell them that. But I think it is important when you do get a chance to see someone who has inspired you to thank them for that, certainly. And I know Harry was just has always been such a very nice guy. I remember when going back to the 4F one time when he was the guest of honor and he was giving a lecture and it was going on for so long. And I was sitting in the front row and I had a cassette player, remember those, sitting on the table, and I was recording his lecture, and it popped up, and so he stopped mid-sentence and he looked at me and he said, "I'll wait, go ahead and flip it over." And I did, and I pushed the button. He said, "Ready?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll go." I recorded some more, and of course he went on until like 2 or 3 or 4 in the morning or something. He just was a machine gun. When you were talking about being inspired by him, when you see 100 people around him, it's easy to be inspired by someone saying, "Hey, look at the joy that they are giving somebody, not
Yeah.
somebody, but bodies, all these people who will take this experience away, will never forget it."
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I remember I went to see him in London he was lecturing at uh, I think it was Ron's day, Ron Macmillan's day, I think
Macmillan,
it was.
sure.
In 1999 it was, and it was in a hotel. I think he started about 11 o'clock at night, this late night lecture. And so halfway through the lecture, there's some clattering in the background.
Hmm.
And Harry sort of turned around and said, what the hell's that clattering? I said, it's the waiting staff getting the breakfast ready. Because it was about 5 o'clock in the morning.
They probably looked at his watch and said, "Oh my goodness, have been going that long?" Yeah. Yeah. He would just be nonstop all the time. Well,
Yeah.
he there again was one of these creators who came up with a lot of different ideas that were commercial things that he would put out that were not just pipe dreams. And other things, I mean, including mentalism. I mean, my wife and I did a 2-person mentalism routine, and one of the codes we used was from his one of his books. But so I'm saying it's just a variety of things that people don't think about. You think of him maybe as being a card guy or someone who has this great memory for names and things like that. But he just did kind of a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
And you specialize really in cards, but would you say that you kind of go outside of that as well?
No, I don't.
Hmm.
I mean, when I was younger, up until the age of, say, 17 or 18, I dabbled in, coins and ropes and silks and all sorts of things.
Hmm.
Uh, but I just fell in love with the card magic, and at that time, I kind of knew fairly well people like Billy McComb and Alan Shaxson. And Billy McComb said to me, not in a particularly nice way, he said, um, you can't just do card magic. It's not enough to entertain people with. And I thought that's like a red rag to a bull to me. So I thought we'll see, we'll see. And then many years later, when I was very successful as a card magic only entertainer for the public, um, Billy McComb introduced me at a lecture, and I reminded him of that, and then he remembered it and said, "Actually, yeah, you got me there." And
I stand corrected.
I stand corrected, because it's not the magic we do. It's us, isn't it? It's what
Hmm.
we bring to it. It's the magic is the medium, and it's our personalities and our drive, energy, humor, character, persona that brings the punters in.
Well, think about that for an example, like with Ricky Jay and his 52 assistants, which he was doing a show on Broadway successfully. It
Yeah,
was just with that. And Guy Hollingworth had one also, I think, expert at the card table most recently. And then there was, of course, Derek Delgadio that had in and of itself that he was doing mainly cards.
yeah.
And so have you thought about or have you done a one-man show of just cards?
I have not sort of televised or anything, but
Like
I
at the
I
Fringe
have.
Festival or someplace?
I know I've worked all those places, but what I've done is, and this is the thing I love mostly over the years, somebody will phone up and say, could I do a sit down card act for their friends and family or for a corporate thing? So I sit down for 1 hour and I take a pack of cards out and I start with high energy, and by the end of it, the energy is even higher.
Hmm.
And I'm very proud of the fact in that 1 hour I can get people really, spiced up, and I because I work very quickly, I probably knock out about 60 or 70 tricks in that 1 hour, really bang, 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 And if people don't believe me watching, there's loads of clips of me on YouTube doing that, where I'm hammer and tongs. That's the kind of the way I kind of bulldozing my way through my act, and that's the most rewarding thing, because to meet, say, 50 strangers who are all very quiet, and 1 hour later you've got them absolutely gripped. It's a wonderful thing to do, I think.
It really is to move them from, as you say, from a high energy thing to an even higher energy at the end. I'm just thinking, for an example, Richard Turner, that I've seen so many times doing his one-man show, and it's just unbelievable from the start to the finish.
Yeah.
And Juan Tamara's being another one. Danny D'Artes, it just keeps it at such a high level. It's like, oh my gosh, it seems like I want to go home and just lay down. I'm tired just watching. It's so so energetic,
Yeah. I think the other thing is that when I've lectured, mainly the ones in America, like for I came over for Penguin Live many years ago and did a lecture for Penguin Live, and we'll say 4Fs and Tannen. I did Tannen's Jubilee in 1997
Wow.
up in Catskill Mountains in New
Yeah.
York, and uh, always the booker, whether it be Tony Spina or Obie O'Brien or whoever, they say, we need to know what you're going to do, what your act is, what the set will be. And I said, I don't have an act. It's just me winging my way through my magic, depending on the reaction of the audience and what they say or what they don't say. So, for instance, somebody mutters or calls out, hey, I wouldn't want to play cards with you.
Sure.
I'll then do one of my poker tricks.
Mm-hmm.
Or have you seen so-and-so on TV? He reads minds. I'll then do sort of pseudo mind reading trick, So I've never actually put pen to paper as to what routines I'm going to do. I start in a place of knowledge and I then wing it depending on, where it goes.
So you really consider yourself a jazz magician?
Yeah, which is like the music, isn't it? It's like
You go where the music or the magic takes you.
yeah, yeah. Well, this is why over the years, and I'm not being detrimental to people, but these people, but I've often disagreed with lots of theory books that say you must do this, you must do that, you have to do this, you have to do that. Um, uh, and I often read these books thinking, well, actually, I don't do any of that, but I'm doing all right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So there's not a one fits all solution, is there? We all have a different sort of way of doing it.
I would imagine it's kind of like telling jokes where some joke leads to another, and you understand that the audience likes this particular type of humor, so I'll tell you another joke like that. So the same
Yeah,
things, like if you like that card trick, then maybe I can do this. And so it kind of leads down this path, I guess,
yeah.
that
I mean, for example, can you imagine if you went out to an audience of 40, 50 people and you said, does anybody here play card games at all? And they all say, no, none of us do, none of us do. And then because your act is set, you end up doing 30 poker tricks, which means nothing to anybody because none of
exactly
them play cards.
right.
So I always think along those lines, uh, I'm not going to do things that probably won't mean much to them. So I have to kind of, I did the Harry Lorraine course, like yourself. I did it. I learned his memory system, so I can remember. I've got a good brain for all my tricks, my little filing system of routines.
Mm-hmm.
Mind you, it's getting not so good as I get older, but when I was younger, I could remember much more.
Yeah. Well, I have learned exactly what you're saying, kind of the hard way as well. And for an example, and I've told this story on the podcast a few times in the past, in which I was doing a show. I'd flown over to Alabama, and then had to drive like for another 3 hours back into the woods someplace where there was a lodge somewhere, and I was doing it for some company party. Long story short, I was doing a cardio. One of the tricks was cardiographic, rising cartoon card rise thing. And whenever I said, "And what was the card you'd selected?" and she said, "I don't know." And I said, "Did you show it to some other people?" Said, "Yeah." And anybody? Nope. We don't play cards. That's the devil's playthings. So we don't. It's like, where have I fallen into or off the end of the earth? And I realized, okay, this won't mean anything to anybody. And had I asked beforehand just a few simple questions about what
Yeah.
direction I could have taken, that could have taken that out, replaced it or whatever. But I mean, I had a set act. I was going to do this by golly, one way or the other.
Yeah.
Just didn't play.
No. I had that. Actually, this was in America. Uh, uh, I did some magic. It was a magic club in America, and the actual club room was in some kind of modern church building,
Mhm.
And I was doing my lecture. The back doors opened, and this porter, or I don't know,
Deacon.
whatever, from the church, yeah, he
Yeah.
stormed in and said, "We won't have gambling in the house of the Lord." Well, I presume that this club met in there on a regular basis,
Yeah.
and I couldn't have been the only card magician to be lecturing there. It was a very strange situation.
Well, I was giving a lesson one time to a guy in a shopping mall before the mall opened. Let's say the mall opened at 10 o'clock, and I would met him in the food court at 9 a.m. And so we were just at a table in front of a McDonald's or someplace and had cards out, and I was teaching him some stuff. And the security guard came by and said, "There's no gambling here." And I said, "Well, we're not gambling." And I was explaining to him what I was doing, and he called his supervisor, and the guy came and kicked us out. And I ended up having to finish the lesson in my car because he thought that I said, "There's no money on the table. There's
Yeah.
nothing." I said, "In fact, let me show you a trick. I'm a magician. I'm teaching this." It's like, "Nope, sorry. No cards. We don't want anybody
Mm,
here." So,
my God.
and that
So
was in Houston,
shocking, isn't it?
Texas. It was weird.
Yeah. Would like a funny story?
Yeah.
Well, I say I've got loads of funny stories.
I want to hear them. Tell me all
Sorry.
of them.
It is one. The very first lecture I ever did, the very first lecture, 1987, 1980, nearly 40 years ago, the first lecture I did. And 20 people in this club room or so. And there was an old guy, a very old guy in his 90s on the front row. And he's like this, he's sort of sitting there watching like this. And
Mm.
as I was lecturing, because I always have my front row about 3 foot away, I want them to be proper close up, I looked at him, and I in my head I thought to myself, he's dead.
Oh no. Oh
Guy
no.
died. I didn't know how I had to make an instant judgment as to what to say and how to handle it.
Sure.
So I just stopped my magic, and I looked at the club secretary, and I said, "I think we've got an incident here. Your friend on the front row." And they looked round, and sure enough, the guy had died. And
Oh my gosh.
so cut a long story short, we all pulled back. They phoned the ambulance. The ambulance came, and it was very sad. And they took this poor chap away. And I packed all my magic up in my case, and very somber. Everybody was very upset. And there was a couple of guys at the back crying because they were friends of his. And this is, and I said to the club secretary, I said, "This is a very, sad, tragic way to, end an evening." But I said, I'm sure he was in his 90s and so on and so forth. And anyway, I said, "I will be on my way and leave you to your sadness." He said, "What do you mean on your way? You haven't finished your act yet?" He said, "We've got another hour yet." So,
The show must go on.
so I unpacked all my bits and pieces and carried on my lecture for the rest of the time, which I thought was very strange indeed.
Well, now
We call
that's
this black
interesting.
humor.
Yeah.
Um, that's dreadful, isn't it?
Yes. Well, you said you have some other stories. Is there anything else that comes to mind?
Oh, goodness me. Well, there's so many. You'd have to kind of say something to kind of start me on a story. It's uh, I
What about in taping? Whenever you've gone, let's say we're working with Penguin or with Murphy's or Big Blind or somebody when you're doing a DVD or something, and then you're going to say, wait a minute, this just isn't working. Let's do a retake. And so let's reset the cards, or they didn't react the way that they normally do in a real commercial situation.
Yeah. Well, I remember I did a big DVD set for Alakazam called Gold Dust. One of my books is called Gold Dust, and I did a 3 DVD set with 50 routines on it. And I kind of like to. I don't want to do retakes. I like to rehearse my magic so well that I can just do it, and I don't want to be hanging around. And I want to do it and get on with things, you know. So we did this whole DVD set in one day from the early morning to the end of the evening. I did 50 routines plus the explanations. And that's a heck of a lot of work, 50 routines for 3 DVD set. And if you look at it on disc 1, I'm kind of, hello, everybody.
Perky.
On disc 3, I've kind of got this shadow appeared. And there's a different sort of kind of look about me that says, can I go home yet? You know,
kind of tired, more serious. Yeah.
Yeah. In retrospect, I should have probably done it over a couple of days or something like that. Which is like and the other thing is I don't like all this business of asking the audience to laugh or smile or over rehearse them. I don't like all that. It's like the curse of L&L videos, isn't it?
Well, you've just taken the words out of my mouth. I was just about to talk about L&L. When I was working with Bennett and we had done an L&L video, they were over the top. The audience was over the top. They were not a realistic audience. And they asked me to do something before I introduced Bennett, and I performed something. And I've done this in corporate shows and on trade shows and whatever. It's a great trick that I had come up with. But I've never had the reaction there. It was one of those things like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. You know, it's like, that just was over the top, but I was warming them up, if you will, getting them ready to, and here's Vanacek, he's going to do some amazing stuff. And they just went even crazier over him. So I don't know. I mean, it was way early in the morning. They couldn't have been on drugs that early in the morning, but it seems like they were just all hyped up and hopped up.
And the trouble with that is that everybody knows that it's not a real reaction.
Yeah.
And as soon as you realize it's not a real reaction, you realize that the audience have been prepped beforehand to raise the level. Because most people will applaud by going, "Oh, that's incredible, that's amazing," or "Wow," or "Fantastic." They don't go, "Wah!" you know. And as soon as they do, so I said to them when we did the Alakazam, we did get some great responses, but they were they were regular reactions. And when I did Penguin Live, it was a great response, but at least they were regular reactions, you know.
Well, I think some people. Go ahead.
So one of my jokes I told at Penguin, which you could hear people kind of, where the hell's he going with this joke, you know?
Yeah.
And I could see the directors or whatever, because it was live, you know, on the side thinking, what's he saying? Do you want to hear it? Can I tell you the joke?
Yeah, sure. I want to hear it.
It's about this married couple, and they want to start a family, and they're having no joy at all, no success at all starting a family. So the guy goes to the doctor and says, "Doctor, we've been trying to start a family. No, nothing's happening." So the doctor says, "Well, look, take this little jar home, do the business into the jar, bring it back tomorrow. We'll do some tests and we'll see what the problem is." So the guy goes back the next day and puts an empty jar on the doctor's desk, and the doctor says, "You haven't filled the jar." And the guy says, "Well, look, I tried desperately with my right hand, no joy at all. I tried feverishly with my left hand. My wife tried with her left and right hand. We got the mother-in-law involved. She tried with her teeth in, she tried with her teeth out, but none of us could get the lid off the bloody jar." So I told that at Penguin. And I could see these people but backstage kind of, oh God, what's he going to say?
Where's he going with this? Yeah.
He's going with this thing.
Well, I was actually at a big corporate meeting one time in which the CEO was going to be talking about what they were planning for the coming year and everything. And there were several hundred people in the audience, men and women, business people. And this guy started out for the joke. And he said, "Well, so I'll see if I can make this brief." So the guy went into, this old man, for his annual checkup. Doc said he's fine. He said, anything that that I need to know? And he said, well, it's kind of personal. He said, well, I'm your doctor. I'll be glad to help with whatever. So the guy says, well, yeah. He said, whenever I make love to my wife, the first time I get hot and sweaty. And he's kind of saying, okay, yeah, I understand. And then the second time, and the doctor raised his eyebrows and he said, I'm kind of cold and clammy. And he said, well, that's kind of unusual. I'll have to think about that and do some research. Well, a few weeks later, this guy's wife had come in for her annual checkup. Everything's fine with her. And he asks again if there's anything perhaps that she wants to share with him. And she said, no, everything's fine. So, well, I normally don't discuss other patients, but since this is your husband, he had mentioned something, and so maybe you can help clear this up. He told me that when the two of you make love, he gets hot and sweaty, and then the second time he's cold and clammy. And of course, everybody in the audience is just going, "Where's he going with this joke?" And the lady smiles and said, "Yeah, I understand. I can explain that." And he said, "Well, tell me." He said, "Well, the first time we do it is in July, and then." Next time is in December. Second time.
That's very good. Very good. I like those kind of jokes. They're kind of, where the hell's this going?
Yes.
I remember. Were you a big fan of Foster Brooks?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Plus, he was a great singer. Yes, of course.
Wasn't he? Foster Brooks, absolutely. I mean, nobody these days remembers Foster Brooks, do they? But
yeah, he was the inebriated comedian singer. What a great guy!
And I just love him. I mean, I love apart from our English comedians, I'm a big fan of Don Rickles, but Foster Brooks as well. And I remember Foster Brooks telling this story about the guy's. He's walks through the graveyard somewhere. He's on his way home, and the vicar's there standing, and the vicar's crying his eyes out. And says, "What's the matter, vicar?" He said, "Well, somebody's stolen my bike. I had my bike here. Somebody's stolen it. It's unbelievable. Who would do that to a vicar?" And the guy says, "Well, the way to find out is," he says, "when you do your sermon on Sunday, run through the Ten Commandments, and when you get to thou shalt not steal, look around the congregation. You'll see somebody looking a little shifty, and then you'll know who it is." And the vicar says, "What a wonderful idea." So it comes to Sunday, he goes through the Ten Commandments, but he doesn't stress anything. And afterwards, the guy says to him, "I thought, vicar, you were going to stress about thou shalt not steal." And the vicar says, "Well, I was going to," but he said, "When I got to the section about committing adultery, I remembered where I left my bike."
Didn't see that one coming either.
Can you imagine Foster Brooks doing that as a drunk?
Yes, I could hear him, belching and trying to get through that. It would be so funny. Well, we could tell jokes the rest of the morning over here or afternoon. But I do want to get back over to some of the creativity and some of the ideas and things that you have put out. And when I look at the website, that you have so many things that you have put out, is there something perhaps that would have been harder for you to have created that is really kind of your baby, that it's like, oh, man, this is great. It may not be a bestseller, but I love this particular thing. And then also, is there something that is a bestseller that everybody's got?
Well, that's an interesting one. Well, my books are my bestsellers. They sell very, very well, and of course, each book is full of doable, practical tricks, if I say so myself. And I've had some very nice comments from people like Jeff McBride and Richard Sanders, Boris Wilde, and all sorts of people about them, because I write in a very conversational manner, and so I'm very proud of the books. And as for the packet tricks, I hopefully I've never released anything that is kind of not as good as something else, but some of them are a bit more obscure, and they probably sell in their hundreds.
Well, the market decides what they want, obviously.
Well, yeah. I mean, because I quite like bizarre tricks, for the bizarre market. I've created quite a few bizarre type tricks, but not many people buy them. But they are enjoyable to those that do, I hope. But sales-wise, the corner of Piccadilly has been. I mean, I'm not boasting here, but it's probably sold in 30 odd years. It's probably sold 10,000 copies, and that's a heck of a lot of copies of a trick.
Right.
because it's been re-released nearly every year. I re-release it, and in the last 25 years, Murphy's Magic has wholesaled it. I was one of their first customers, by the way, Murphy's Magic, back in the day when Mark Murphy rang me up and said, I'm starting this new business up.
I believe you and I both were, because
Well, yeah.
same with the Banachek. That was our early projects. We had done psychokinetic silverware VHS with them,
Oh, yeah.
and then publishing the psychological subtleties, and they have always been a jobber. And so yeah, when Mark was still with
Yeah.
Maxwell, and they were just breaking off into Murphy. So yeah, I guess we're one of the
Yeah.
both of us are early into
That's
that.
about 97, 98, was that? Something like that? I think it is about 97, 98. It's
Could be. Banachek and I've been partners since '87, so that could be. Maybe it might have been 10 years later. Might be in '97.
yeah. Have I answered your question now? I'm not too sure whether I have.
No,
No,
I think
no,
we
I
got
haven't,
it
have
peeled
I?
off. You were just talking about how that, as far as they have sold over 10,000 of those books of yours that have
The
been.
corner Piccadilly, the trick. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah. Yeah, that is not
that's
only
not a book. It's a trick. It's a
it's a
packet
trick.
trick.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, packet trick. It's a very popular trick, and lots of big pros use it, and I'm very proud of it. It's a very strong trick using aged looking cards, tarot size or slightly bigger. So that's a probably one of the things I'm most proud of.
When you are creating things, what do you consider as a muse? Is there something in which that you have perhaps just been listening to music, watching TV, you have a dream in the middle of the night and jot down an idea, or you have been working on something and say, man, what if I did this instead of that? I mean, there are so many, or it could be all the above then as well. I mean, there's no one thing necessarily that a creator says, this is the way I create. But
Yeah.
is there something that you could recommend to others of the muse they should listen to internally in order to create things?
Yeah, I mean, like you say, there's not one thing or the other, but I think mostly I'm tinkering, and I think, what if I did this? What if I did that? Could I do this? Could I do that? And I like tinkering with principles in card magic, ones that aren't often used. For instance, there's a trick of mine in Card Foolers called Killer for the Closer. It's such a strong principle, in my opinion. It's not my principle. The original principle goes back, is the Ramesses principle that Larry Becker used for Will the Cards match. But I've turned it all up on its head for this particular trick, and I'm just about to release a packet trick version of it for use in pubs and clubs and restaurants using alcoholic drinks and their mixers. So that's using a principle where I've brainstormed a principle and come up with an idea and worked it and so on and so forth.
To put a presentation around it.
Yeah, and also change the principle really as well. Turned it up in its head, really. You'd have to see it to know what I'm talking about, really, I guess. But and sometimes I think, probably like we all do, you read something and I think, well, that doesn't need a full deck setup, or it doesn't need that fake card, or maybe I could do it with a borrowed deck, or maybe I could do it without the setup. So there's that kind of process, isn't there?
Well, also your audience will tell you as well. If you're starting to do something and you're doing a packet trick with 9 cards that could easily be done with 6 cards, then why not whittle it down? Because you're just making it too long that the outcome is still the same as far as the appreciation for the trick. You might as well cut out the other 30 cards, that kind of a thing. And so it's from actually being in the trenches and doing the tricks.
Yeah, yeah. But it's also there was a trick. I can't remember the name of the trick. No, I can't remember the name of the trick, but in one of my books, I released a trick called Twister back in the 90s in a book of mine called Nocturnal Creations. And it was taking a fairly well-known trick that used 7 cards to pass off as 4. And I came up with exactly the same trick without any changes to the effect, but using 5 cards. And I think it was important because 7 cards look like a fat packet, whereas 5 cards looks like 4. And I think that was a very good bonus because the cards could be easily displayed and handled and without any suspicion close up,
Yeah, right.
So there's that kind of a thing. And the diary trick of mine, the Gordon diary trick.
Oh
You
yeah, you
know,
are well known for that trick as well.
yeah. And it's the only, well, it was the only totally impromptu version of it with a regular diary, which you could make up yourself with all different cards in it.
Explain the effect for people who are oblivious to what the heck we're talking about here.
Yeah, the diary trick. Well, just to go back further, the diary trick is the creation of Ted Danson in the 1950s, an English performer who was friends with Alex Elmsley and Roy Walton, John Derris, and so on. And the diary trick is you have a diary instead of events that you're going to do. You on all the dates in the year, you have a name of a playing card, and of course, there's 52 cards in a deck, so they are repeated, a few times throughout the diary. But anyway, you show the diary with all the dates on it,
Right.
and with all the playing cards entries, you then hand the spectator the diary. And in my case, with my trick, with one pack of cards, borrowed pack of cards, you ask the spectator to shuffle the cards. You ask them to name a particular date in the year that means something to them, and then you ask them to choose a card. So let's assume that they choose the 5 of clubs, and the date they choose is the 24th of December. They turn to the date, and in the date in the diary is the same card they just chose.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the effect. But my method is using one regular diary, which can be inspected, one pack of cards, which is borrowed, and they shuffle the pack at the beginning. I'm not going to tell you any more than that.
No, I bought the trick many years ago.
You got it.
Yeah, yeah. I haven't done it in a while. I mean, it's since
Yeah.
I've moved, it's here someplace. But
Yeah.
it was one of those things that I've always enjoyed that trick, and I had made up a diary and gone through all the process from the original the way that it was. And then I heard about yours. It's like I got to get that. And when I was working restaurants, I would do that. That is just a killer
Excellent.
trick.
Well, thank you. That's very kind of you to say so. Alan Shaxson used to use it in his stage act.
Mm-hmm.
Nick Einhorn uses it in his act as well. And it's there's no there's a system, obviously, as you know. I'm
Yep.
just people listening or watching, but it's one of the easier methods out there and the most practical method, I think.
I think the idea is more practical than just about anything because the David Bearglass card at any number plot or scenario is
Yeah.
well known, but this makes perfect sense. The people are used to a diary or a calendar, as we call it in the
Yeah.
US, which is just like a pocket calendar that fits into your breast pocket or something. It's that type of a thing for people
Yeah.
who are wondering about what kind of a diary you're talking about in the US. But anyhow, by having that, it makes more sense. And then by relating cards to a date that could be their birthday or whatever else. Since I just love the idea.
Yeah.
It takes it to a different level.
It's a lovely, lovely plot, isn't it? I remember when I came up with it, I was researching other methods, and so I bought lots of other methods that were on the market at the time. And one of them was this big box arrived like this, and when I took it out, there was 7 diaries in it, and it said in the instructions, secrete these 7 diaries amongst your person.
In different parts of your
Yeah.
uh-huh.
I mean, I don't think I've even got 7 pockets, let alone, breast pocket, inner breast pocket, trouser pocket, left trouser pocket, back pocket, jacket pocket. I mean, you'd end up you'd look like the Michelin Man, wouldn't you? Sort of.
That's right. That's pretty true. Pretty true. Well, Paul, this has been great. I enjoyed the chance we've had to sit and chat. You can get caught up here for a while. It's been lovely. So tell me, the name of my podcast, of course, is called the Magic Word Podcast. And so I always like to close by asking my guests what it is that's your philosophy of life. What is it's important to you? What it doesn't have to be a word. It can be a phrase or, what's your phrase?
What's my, you got me there as well. I don't know. Oh God, what's my phrase? I can remember, I'll tell you, this is one I remember I saw Frank Sinatra say once. He used to say, if I get this right now, you've got me on the hop here. If you want to be seen, stand up. If you want to be heard, speak up. But if you want to be loved, shut up and sit down.
Wow. I've never heard that one before.
Or his other one was, may you live to be 100 years old, and the last card trick you see or read is one of mine.
Ah, there you go.
How about that?
That's good. Paul, thanks very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Scott. I hope if you ever want to chat again with even more funny stories, whatever, it'd be lovely to do it.
Yep, love the chat, and I know we'll be seeing each other somewhere down the road, somewhere soon, I'm sure.
Thank you, and lots of love to everybody watching. Bless you all, and may you all live to be 100 years old. And the last card trick you try or read is one of mine.
That's great. And if you want to, go to paulgordon.com and you could see about
.net.
getting this book. .net.
paulgordon.net. If you go to paulgordon.com, I think you get a hairdresser.
Oh, completely different guy. He doesn't do the kind of magic you do. So with the Magic Word Podcast, that's Paul Gordon. This is Scotty out. Thank you very much, Paul. That was wonderful. I really enjoyed our chat. It just went by all too quickly. And I thank you for your time and your words and your friendship. And I believe a lot of the things that you had shared on this episode were things that perhaps other people might take to heart and be able to perhaps replicate your success then as well. We do know that we're standing on the shoulders of giants, and you, my friend, are one of those. I just think it's kind of great that you were a friend of Harry Lorraine's and so close to him and how he had inspired us. I think that's important that we do go out and tell those who have inspired us, thank you. And also the fact that you sing, I love the classics. And I do recommend that people go to YouTube and check out some of the videos where just type in Paul Gordon, singer. I've listened to a few of those, and you really have a great voice, and that backup band is just amazing. I recommend that. So while you're on YouTube here, go and check that out then as well. So until next week, stay well, get booked. Remember, if you want to be seen, stand up. If you want to be heard, speak out. And if you want to be loved, then sit down and shut up. And I think I'll do that right now. This is Scotty out.